On to movies and or TV shows. Today I have another 10 recommendations for movies or TV shows that you can watch with your kids to really immerse yourself into the season. All of these are perfect for cozying up on a rainy day under a warm blanket, sipping your tea, and watching these movies as a family. Again, I'm going to divide these into two groups of 5. The first 5 are live action movies, so these might be a little more appropriate for older children, for maybe later preschool or elementary school and up. They might have, it might be a little harder to capture the attention of the very young children with these ones. And then the second set of 5 movies and or shows are animated. So you're going to have a little easier time capturing the young one's attention with the animated films, but these are also all animated films that I think are really enjoyable for adults as well, which sometimes is tricky to find. So let's start with the live action movies. The first live action video that I will recommend is Peter Rabbit. Peter Rabbit is the film adaptation of Beatrix Potter's The Tale of Peter Rabbit story that we actually talked about earlier in my book recommendations. The film takes the story beyond the pages of Beatrix Potter, so it does capture the beginning portions of the story and then actually takes it beyond that, bringing it into this full drama of a movie that we can enjoy. The film follows a rabbit named Peter and his siblings and his cousin Benjamin Bunny as they infiltrate Mr. McGregor's garden to eat his vegetables. When Mr. McGregor dies, his nephew Thomas moves into the manor and finds that it is infested with all of these animals. He is bent on getting all of them out and setting up contraptions in order to keep them all out, while simultaneously falling in love with his neighbor Bee, who is the caretaker and the lover of all of these animals. As you can imagine, that causes some drama to happen and things escalate, and it's just a really fun story to follow along with as our characters learn how to live together in peace. This film is a fun one to watch as a family, even with children who are a bit younger, because it does include talking animals who are CGI animated among the actual live action actors. And I think the marriage of the two, so the live action with the CGI, helps it to bridge the gap of animated and live action for younger watchers. Also, it's just always fun to have movies with talking animals, and I find that with my own children, that captures their attention for a lot longer than a stereotypical, just plain live action movie. My next movie recommendation is a true blue live action called The Little Princess, which was originally produced in 1995. This movie follows a young girl named Sarah who goes to live at an all-girls boarding school while her father fights in the Great War. While in the boarding school, Sarah forms friendships with all of the girls, her peers, and the scullery maid. But when her father is pronounced dead and her fortune is lost, the headmistress strips her of all of her possessions and forces her to become a scullery maid as well. In the story, Sarah escapes this really horrific truth that she's living in the telling of stories to the girls in the building who come to visit her. She tells tales of a princess in India, all the while teaching the girls that all girls are princesses no matter their lot in life, which I think is such a beautiful sentiment for us to learn, or a concept for us to grasp, that we are all worthy of living a great life no matter who we are or where we came from, which is part of why I love this story so much. This is a movie that I first watched when I myself was a child and fell in love with it. It makes me think of spring because there are so many scenes of these just beautiful floral arrangements. There's a tea party that happens, and Even the scenes in India seem to me to be very spring-like. The costuming feels very light academia, and it just gives me those vibes of the springtime. So it's a movie that for sure we're going to be watching during the spring this year. My next movie recommendation is a cult classic, The Princess Bride. This may be a movie that you might want to watch with slightly older kids just so they can grasp the humor behind the movie and maybe not be so scared of those giant rats. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But I can say that I for sure watched this movie when I was not that old, and I have loved it since the first time that I saw it. To me, this movie feels very spring because it is happening in castles and these like beautiful rolling hills and princesses and queens and kings, and something about this royalty aspect makes it feel very spring to me. This story, if you have not seen it before, follows a swashbuckling farmhand named Wesley who collects a unlikely band of friends to go and save his one true love, Buttercup, from the revolting prince. The movie is filled with sword fighting and humor and adventure and love and happy endings, and you just really can't go wrong when it comes to The Princess Bride. My next recommendation is actually a show. It's called Watership Down. This is another screen adaptation of a book, and a book that I actually read as a child, but it's another one that I just can't really remember reading it, but I know that I did, and one that I probably will reread to my own children in the next couple of years. This particular series is a 4-episode series, which I think makes it really fun to maybe prolong that over a full month and watch one episode on a specific night of the week with your family until you get to the end of the story. This story follows a young rabbit named Fiver who has this vision of his warren being destroyed by human machines. He warns the bunnies around him, including his brother Hazel, who believes him and gets a couple of bunnies to leave the warren to go and search for a new place to live. Eventually, they find a new warren, and they call it Watership Down, and they form a new life inside of this warren, but they need females in order to reproduce and to not end up fighting each other. So they go in search of does that they can then bring into their warren. They learn of a neighboring warren who has a bunch of does that are trapped, they have imprisoned, and they take it upon themselves to go and free the does in order to bring them back to their own to mate with them. Because it is also another film that is CGI animated, it has a realistic feel to it, but it also has the more fanciful storyline of talking animals and following, this band of rabbits. This show does have some darker themes to it and can have some scenes that might be scary to kids who are very young. So again, this might be one that you want to watch with slightly older children, maybe elementary school age and up. But I do think that the story is just a classic. It helps us to emotionally attached to these characters, and we're really gunning for them to be successful and to find life after all of these tragedies that they go through. My final show recommendation that falls into this live action category is none other than Anne with an E. Anne with an E was my first experience with the Anne of Green Gables story. It is the screen adaptation of the book by L.M. Montgomery, and I think it does such a beautiful job of portraying the story of Anne Shirley. The show follows Anne along with her family, Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert, and her friends from school, her love interests, and it just really immerses you into the world of Anne of Green Gables. I feel that the show is perfect for really all ages. It may not maintain the attention span of the very young children, but I will say that this is a show that you can play, you can have on while your children are awake and around you, and it's very family appropriate. I will definitely be watching this with my daughter, who is in 2nd grade. She's 8 years old, and I know for a fact that she's going to absolutely love it. One caveat I will say is that the show was canceled, so it does not go all the way to the end of the Anne of Green Gables books or the story of Anne, but I think that it's still 100% worth watching. I'm devastated that this show will not be finished, but I am so grateful that I watched it anyway, and I think that you should too. Let's move on to animated films, because animated films are where we're definitely going to engage those really young audiences, but I wanted to make sure to pick ones that would be entertaining for adults as well. So here are my 5 animation movie recommendations. First and foremost is Tangled. Tangled is a Disney movie, and it follows the story of Rapunzel. Rapunzel, as an infant, is saved. Her life is saved by this magical flower that gifts her with magical hair. At the same time, there is this witch who has been using the flower to help her maintain her youth. She steals baby Rapunzel and brings her to a tower so she can then harness the power of the magic hair to keep her young forever. In the meantime, the castle with the king and the queen every year on Rapunzel's birthday release these floating lanterns into the sky, and Rapunzel has taken notice. On the eve of her 18th birthday, she asks to be able to go to see the floating lights, to see what they are, because she feels connected to them, but her mother, the witch, will not let her go. While instead she goes out on a journey to bring back Rapunzel some special paints, Rapunzel meets up with Flynn Rider, who is a thief, who's a wanted criminal in the castle, and demands that he takes her to see the floating lights. The story follows the two, Flynn and Rapunzel, as they go on this adventure and meet a whole host of fanciful characters. It is a beautiful film. It is so spring-like in its colors and in its scenery. The music is just wonderful, and the message of having a dream and following your dreams, and when you get your dreams, of creating new ones, is one that brings a little bit of a lump to my throat and makes me feel something. And I think that it's just a top tier Disney movie for any time of the year, but definitely for the spring for me. My next movie recommendation is My Neighbor Totoro by Studio Ghibli. This movie is an anime, so it is a little stylistically different from, say, a Disney movie. It feels a little slower, perhaps, than a Disney movie, but it is beautiful, and it's so innocent. The storyline and the characters and the way they work together. This movie follows 2 sisters, Satsuki and Mei, and their father as they move into a new home next to a hospital, or nearby a hospital, where their mother is staying. Their mother has some kind of chronic illness and is not able to be home, so they move somewhere where they can go and visit her more often. The house itself is rumored to be haunted by some of the locals, and they find that what it is haunted by are in fact spirits of the forest. When little May wanders into the forest following a couple of the spirits, she finds the biggest spirit, and he thinks, based on some of his grunts, that his name is Totoro. The girls are told that their mother is going to come home for the weekend, and they're so excited, but then find out that the mother falls ill again and is not going to make it. May believes that if she brings her an ear of corn that she picks with her own hands from the garden, that it will help her mother to get better. So she goes to the hospital on her own to bring her mom this ear of corn, but gets lost along the way. So Totoro shows back up and helps Satsuki, the sister, to find May. So it's this very sweet story about these girls and these spirits and the way that they all work together. It's whimsical, it's light, although it does have some heavier themes to it, with the mother being sick and the girls being worried about what's going to happen to their mom. But ultimately, this story is just precious, and definitely one that I think is worth watching. My next movie recommendation is FernGully. This is a movie I watched as a child. We loved it, and it really can read either spring or summer since it takes place in the rainforest, but it's about fairies. This fairy named Krista is an apprentice to a magi, who is another fairy that's trapped this evil spirit into a tree in the rainforest. One day, humans show up and they are deforesting part of the rainforest, cutting the trees down. When a tree almost falls on top of a human man, she saves him, but in doing so, shrinks him down to fairy size. So now this man named Zach is aware of the fairies and learns about nature and the protecting of the forest and why deforesting the rainforest is a bad idea. It's a story that really celebrates nature and friendship, and it's just super sweet. And also, Robin Williams voices one of the characters, and that always feels like a win to me. My fourth recommendation for an animated film is the Tinkerbell movie. This movie, when I first watched it, really surprised me with how I liked it. The animation style was really, really good, but the storyline is so fantastic, and the message, the lesson learned at the end of the film. Tinkerbell is a fairy that is born of a baby's first laugh and goes to live in Pixie Hollow. When she gets there, she learns about her talent. All of the fairies within Pixie Hollow have specific talents that kind of segregate them into these different groups of fairies. So you have the nature fairies, you have water fairies and wind fairies and light fairies and animal fairies, and then you have tinker fairies, which is where Tinkerbell is placed. Tinker fairies are fairies that tinker with things. They put things together, they make contraptions, they create things to help the other fairies to do their job. But when Tinkerbell finds out that tinker fairies are one of the only ones that are not able to go back to the mainland where they can participate in fairy things over in the human land, she is devastated and decides that she is going to change her talent. What I love about this movie is the message of being proud of who you are in your own unique talents. Tinkerbell learns what it means to be a tinker fairy and what it means to be proud of the fact that she is through the course of the movie. And I think that that is sometimes something that we struggle with as adults, as kids, is being jealous of what everybody else has and what they're able to do. So I think that this movie is a really good one for all ages to watch and to think about what it means to be proud of who you are and your own unique talents. My final animated movie recommendation for the spring is none other than Bambi. Bambi is the epitome of a spring movie. Bambi is a movie that depicts the life of a deer from their infancy all the way up until adulthood, and all of the trials and challenges and love and everything that happens in the lifespan of a deer. It is a celebration of nature and the ways that humans interact with nature. It is sad and also beautiful. It is funny and also happy. It's just a really great movie to watch to celebrate the spring season with your family. All right, friends, that is it for my spring recommendations for movies and shows to watch with your family. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you got some ideas out of it for shows that you might want to watch in the season we're in. If you did, leave a thumbs up on this video down below and a flower emoji in the comments section. And while you're there, if you have any other movies or shows that you think are perfect to watch in the spring, whether they are for families or for adults, it doesn't matter. Leave those in the comments section so we can build this really robust list of different shows that can inspire us to enjoy the season of spring. This is the second video in a series of 4, and the next one that you're going to see is going to be recommendations for games, video games, board games, and puzzles that I also think are perfect for the springtime and are things that you can do or participate in with children. or by yourself, or with a significant other. And I hope that I will see you for that next video when it comes out very soon. Until then, I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and friends, I will see you in the next video. Bye now.